topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning. God, good morning. I cannot believe I do this all the time. This is what happens when you have shows all across the country and you don't even realize what time zone you're in. Welcome to another Ask the Experts. We're here in South Florida, where our show today is sponsored by board-certified family law attorney Tina Lewert. You can call Tina Lewert at her office at I got to make sure I've got this right now, 544-6861. We might have to change that when we come back. But without Tina, this show would not exist. She's been with us for almost 6 years now, and we are so happy. We're going to be talking family law today. And when I say Tina Lewert, it is board certified in family law. Tina Lewert, welcome to Ask the Experts, Tina.
Hi, how are you?
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes, and you have been really, really busy. It looks like you've taken on some help that you desperately needed, and you just keep growing.
Yeah, a little bit. I think in family law, we don't want to grow too much because people like their personal attention and need their personal attention. And so, we don't want to get too big, but we've been very busy. So I have, an associate attorney that works with us, Tamara Grossman. She's fantastic. She's going out there and going to court and winning hearings left and right and all this stuff. I can brag about her. And actually just today started looking for a little more help just, in the back office and stuff because we're real busy. So people are getting divorced.
I remember a long time ago when it was basically just you, and look how you've grown now.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll tell you one of the reasons why you're so busy, because you're so good at what you do. And, we say board certified. That is really amazing because in a lot of our other markets, including South Florida, board certified is something special and something to be proud of.
Yeah. Especially in the state of Florida. And there are some states have board certification programs and some states don't. But in Florida, it's a big deal. It's the Florida Bar's only designation of an expert. So you can be board certified in different areas of law. I think there's something like 20 or 30 different areas of law. So criminal law, real estate law, civil law, family law. And what that means is that, like I said, the Florida Bar has designated me as an expert. There are only in family law, I think it's still fewer than 300 attorneys board certified in family law in the entire state of over 100,000 attorneys now, or 110,000 attorneys, something like that. And yes, you've got to have a high level of your practice where you specialize in family law, a high level of skill and experience and recommendations by the judges and by, fellow attorneys. And there's a pretty rigorous exam that goes along with it. That's very hard to pass. I've been board certified now for almost 15 years. I think this is my 14th year being board certified. And it's an honor to have that designation. And I think it kind of sets us apart from some of the other attorneys around.
If you're watching on TV, yes, she did say 15 years. She looks like she's in her early 30s.
Oh.
You look
Well, 15
really
years
good.
board certified, 15 years board certified, 23 years almost in practice.
Amazing.
So,
Amazing. Well, all I know is we're happy to have you. Tina, why? I've never asked you this before. Why did you choose family law to go into?
that's a long story. I think that family law was always I didn't plan to. I definitely didn't plan to. It just sort of happened that way. And I thought I wanted to do something totally different. I thought I was going to do like corporate, some kind of mergers and acquisitions or some kind of desk job or something. And it just fell into place where I took an interest in it and sort of started gravitating toward that. And was helping someone out that I was working for on cases that they had. And then I think around the same time, I had a family member who was going through a pretty intense divorce, and I just took an interest in it. And then it just always clicked with me. It's very, I would say it's very human. And I think if family law attorneys, someone said this to me once, the people that are practicing family law and doing only family law, I've been doing this for a long time. If you really dig deep, there might be a reason, for that's personal to you that you're doing it, because I see it as helping people. We're helping people. It's not pretty. It's not, a fun topic for a lot of people, obviously. It's the dissolution of your relationship, your marriage, the division of all of your things, how much time you're going to have with your children, how much money you're going to have to live on, where you're going to live. It's sort of like everything going on in these cases all at once, which are the most important things to people. Obviously, the children first and foremost, but it's just something that it means a lot to people. And typically, I would say, we're obviously people getting divorced for a reason. So they're moving on. The way I see it, they're moving on to something better, or hoping for something better. And so that's sort of what I see as part of my job, is helping them move past, a bad part and hopefully toward something a little better.
Well, one thing in your area of law is you do go through a lot of Kleenex.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They're on my desk.
Yes. So, and I just had someone who just texted us wanting to know, do you handle paternity law?
Yes, routinely. So what that means is we refer to a paternity case where the parties have had a child or children out of wedlock. And what those cases entail is we can't divide, some people live together, they live together for many years and have children, and they may have assets together. The family court doesn't take jurisdiction over dividing their assets, but the family court does take jurisdiction over establishing legal paternity of that the father is the biological father, because that's not presumed unless you're married. So if you're not married, you have to establish the legal paternity. And then the other big part of it, usually the bigger part, is establishing a parenting plan so that there's time sharing and then child support and all the things that are related to the care and upbringing of the children. So yeah, we do those all the time.
It's amazing, since we've gone to TV and we're now getting people writing us from all over Florida, not just South Florida, but all over Florida. But we got an email when they saw us promoting your show this week from Alabama. And I don't know if it's somebody who's going through a divorce, but it says, you know what? Florida is so lucky to have no fault divorce. Tell people what no fault divorce is.
Okay. Well, I didn't even know they had fault divorce in Alabama. So apparently they do, if that person said that.
No,
So,
it sounds like they don't. They said we're lucky to have it because they don't.
Yeah, we're lucky. Oh, because that's what I'm saying. Right. That's what I meant. Sorry. I got that backwards. Yeah. So they have fault divorce. So no fault means a couple of things. The first thing that it means is that we don't need to prove legal grounds or factual grounds really to get a divorce. So you don't have to have adultery, abuse, things like that to get a divorce as grounds for the divorce. And so in a traditional fault related state, you would have to prove that those things exist just to get the divorce. And then in addition to that, what it means is that during the case or within the case, we don't punish our spouse for their bad behavior. So if someone was abusive or there was infidelity, they're not going to be deprived of something that they would otherwise be legally entitled to. And the other person's not going to get something that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten because of those things. It's still an equitable distribution state. And then we have alimony and other things that provide, for the right circumstances of the parties, but we're not punishing our spouse for their bad behavior. So that's sort of what I see as all encompassed in what no fault means.
Tina, it's the economy is not so great. People are losing their jobs. It's hard to find a job.
Mm-hmm.
How has your practice changed in the last 2 to 3 years?
I mean, I think definitely people, well, I would say more than 2 to 3 years, even just as time has gone by and as society has sort of progressed. But yes, definitely in the last few years, people, they obviously are more, they want to settle their cases faster because getting a divorce and having a lawyer is still an expense. So they're trying to, cut down on things. And it's sometimes harder to figure out, for people to figure out how they're moving on and where they're going to live and things like that. I see that a lot because the rents are so high. The rent's high, the mortgage interest rate is high. So people are like not dying to, they're selling their house. We can maybe get a good price for our house, but they're not dying to buy a new house because the mortgage rates are high and the prices are high. And then the rental market is not great either. So it's a tough situation for some people to, be looking at like, okay, we had one amount of money, 2 incomes in one household. Now we have 2 separate households, the same amount of money. And how do we figure that out? So I've seen people struggle with that a little bit more. And as a result, even though everyone has the goal of resolving their case sooner than later, it's sometimes harder to, because you just have these sort of conundrums that people are in that, it's like an obstacle to moving on or to selling the house and separating finances and things like that. So,
I look at, there's a lot of people who still work out of their house, and it must be difficult when both parties are working together where they used to go to work during the day. And, it's people, we know that they fight over money, and there's money problems. And we have so much of that now. And I guess I worry about next year. There's some new laws here in Florida going into effect that are really going to affect the older population, people who own condos. Mm-hmm. There's going to be huge expenses coming in because now if you've got 3 floors or more now, they're going to have to come in with architects and engineers and do safety checks. And there's already people who are living, month to month already, and it's going to be tough. And I just see all of a sudden these people who've been married forever are going to want a divorce.
Yeah. Or they're going to, that is tough. And they're probably going to want to get out of those properties quick. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Divorce is a sad thing, but sometimes there's children involved. And, child support, is that a big part of your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, most of the kids.
Your job's not over after the divorce.
Right. Well, the child support is done as part of the divorce case. So it's one of the issues within the divorce case that we resolve. And yeah, I mean, you said sometimes there's children involved. Most of the time there's children involved. So most of the cases that we have, people have children, I would say, minor children under the age of 18. And yeah, so we have to figure out child support. It's a calculation. There's a formula. There's a statute that governs it, Florida Statute 61.30, which kind of lays out how the formula is calculated. And of course, we all have software programs and all that do this. And then, you plug in incomes of both parties and how much time sharing with the children each party has. So those are some of the basic factors. And of course, So the only thing to fight over when it comes to child support, because child support's a formula, is, well, maybe somebody doesn't believe that that's the other party's income, or maybe somebody wants more than a certain amount of time sharing, so they're fighting over the time. So you really have to figure those things out first. You have to figure out what your time sharing is going to be with the children, meaning what percentage of time each party is with the children. And they do it as a percentage of overnights during the year. So percentage of 365 overnights. And so you have to figure out some of those things. So child support, although it's easy to calculate once you have everything figured out, it's usually kind of done almost last in the cases. And then, but it's part of the whole overall settlement of the case, of the divorce case and the paternity.
How do the courts decide about relocation if a parent's allowed to relocate?
So Florida has a relocation statute, meaning parental relocation, which is defined as more than 50 miles away from your principal place of residence. And it would have to be for 60 days or longer. So that's what the definition of a relocation with minor children would be. And there's a statute. And so what the statute requires is that the parent seeking to relocate with the children to move more than 50 miles away has to get either permission from the court and a court order, or they have to get written consent of the other parent, and not just like, signing something on a napkin. It has to be a full-blown amended parenting plan that lays out, okay, if this person moves and I stay here and they have the children, find the person who's not relocating, what's the time sharing going to be, and how am I going to see the children? And if there are, airplane flights involved, who's going to pay for the flights? Who's going to schedule them? How often is it going to be? Where is the time sharing going to take place? So I see sometimes where people agree to a relocation. Not a lot, but it happens. And then, where if the parties do not agree, if the non-locating parent objects, then we have to have a full-blown trial. And I will tell you, some people underestimate. Yeah, some people underestimate. I had a case in 2021 that turned into a 5-day trial over a parent relocating, and they wanted to now I've seen relocations where one parent wants to move from Florida out to California because they have a job or something, like an amazing job, schools and better, but usually it stems from finances. That's the primary thing that usually it stems from. What is the life or the environment, and you have that to relocate because their life and the quality of life is going to be better. But I've seen other parents, like I had a case where they wanted to relocate 2 hours away. So Central Florida, or South Florida to Central Florida, and it was a big full-blown trial. We had a guardian ad litem who came in and did a whole investigation, talked to the parents, talked to the children, talked to the teachers, the doctors, the friends, the relatives, and did a full investigation and came in and made recommendations. And the court did end up granting the relocation, which was good because that was I was the one who won that. that was what I was asking. I was the one asking for the relocation. But yeah, those can be very heavily contested issues, and they're not easy. I mean, that you really have to show that something is so much better in the new location than it is in the current location for the children, and that they would benefit overall. So, but we do have a statute, and it tells the court all the factors and all the things that they have to consider in making that decision.
Tina, does a judge ever ask the kids who they would like to live with? Is that even an option?
So they can theoretically. Not really. They don't do that. Okay. So most judges at this point, they don't want to see children in their courtroom. They don't want even older children. There's a lot of judges that say, I don't want any child under the age of 18 in my courtroom. They will appoint, like I said earlier, a guardian ad litem, who is a person. They're not an attorney for the child, because that would be an attorney ad litem. The guardian ad litem is a person, like I said, does an investigation, to make recommendations to the court about what's in the best interest of the children. And they are, they're representing the best interest of the children, not the children, not as attorneys for the children. So that's their job. And so typically the guardian ad litem, there's also something called a social investigator. That's done where usually the social investigator has to be a mental health professional. So it depends on what's appropriate for the case, but those people can be sort of, even though they're not attorneys for the children, they can be sort of the voice of the children. So if children communicate a preference, and the child custody statute allows the court to take into consideration preferences of the children, those people can sort of be the voice of that and communicate that information to the judge. Judges don't like, I've seen it done. I've seen it where a judge will say, I want to speak to this child in my chambers. They call it in camera, and there typically would be a court reporter there, but the judge in private with the child to ask questions. It's rare. Most of them don't like to do that. So those are the ways that we sort of
about once a year, I really want people to know who you are, because, well, when you're hiring an attorney for something as so serious as divorce, especially when there's kids involved, it's really important that you get along with your attorney, you see eye to eye. What has been the hardest thing about being a family attorney for you?
Ooh, the hardest thing.
I know when there's kids involved, that's got to be hard.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, part of my job, one of the biggest jobs that you sort of just, alluded to, well, maybe you didn't, but it's what popped into my mind when you said you have to see eye to eye with your attorney, or most people want to do that. Part of my job is counselor at law. And part of my job is managing my clients' expectations, right? So I was in a colleague / friend of mine who's a mediator. I was in his office last week, and he had on his wall this little poster thing. And it's funny because it said something that I always say. I thought I made it up, but it was written on this wall hanging in his office. And it said, I am an attorney. I'm not a magician. And I said, I have said that to my clients, not in disrespect, but, I have clients that come in and they, not for nothing, they've seen things on TV, or they've seen movies, or they've seen, I don't know, Kramer versus Kramer, or whatever something more current is, or some version of something on TV, some TV drama. And they think that that's how it works. And it's not how it works. And, or they think that, obviously there's a lot of heartbreak. There's a lot of abuse. There's a lot of things that are hurtful to people in their relationships as they reach their demise. And I have a lot of clients that come to me and they say, well, this person, the other person, they deserve this, or this isn't fair. And sometimes even when it comes to child custody, and I have to sort of manage the expectations that they have, and say, I'm going to tell you what I can do. I'm going to tell you what I can't do. And I'm not, as an ethical attorney, because that's also a huge part of my job, just by definition of being a lawyer, is I'm not going to pursue a position for you that I know is not, is contrary to what the law would provide, or is something that is just not, you're not going to get, or you're not entitled to. And I have to manage and explain, like, the law says X, Y, Z, and therefore you may be entitled to this, but you're definitely not entitled to this. And some people, they don't want to hear that. But I find that most the people that I work with, or say gravitate toward me to hire me, they appreciate want to go to court and look stupid and lose and waste their money pursuing money and time, but money, pursuing something that they're not going to win. So I think, I don't know if it's the hardest part, but it's one of the hardest parts of my job, to answer your question. What is, managing people's expectations. And that's a huge part of any lawyer's job, but especially in family law.
Well, one of the things I know, and you don't blast it out, you really do care about your clients. and you're board certified, I don't think anyone's ever going to get anything past you. But what I love about your practice is you only do family law. You don't have a shingle out there that says we do criminal, bankruptcy, personal injury. You concentrate on one area.
Right. Correct. Yeah. And I think in recent years, more people are doing that, but it always it baffles me, to be honest with you, that people practice all these different areas of law. I don't know how you can be, let's say, even if you're not an expert designated by the bar, I don't know how versed you can be in all these different areas all at once. And maybe it's just with family law too, family law and other things. Family law is so complicated and so nuanced, and it's always changing. It's constantly changing. So we have to keep on top of it. And it's it's enough. But I believe that. I think that the board certification program is important, because if you need a criminal attorney or if you need a real estate attorney, I always suggest to people that they look for someone who's board certified in that area, because it tells you that they specialize in that area of law.
Well, like I've told people before, we are just so lucky to have you not only as our expert in family law, but your firm sponsors Ask the Experts every week. And we cannot thank you enough for being such a big part of the show. And it's scary for us sometimes, Tina, because, you sign people up to be your expert and you don't know if they're really that good. But I got to tell you, it's been such a pleasure having your name attached to our show. A person cannot go wrong by retaining your services. And, like I said, you don't just practice in South Florida. You do cases outside of South Florida.
Yeah, sure. I mean, occasionally I get calls from sort of all over. And, I have actually a case right now. Well, it's still South Florida, but in the Keys. So I'm in Boca, but that's a few counties away, right? But I have a case there, and I've had cases on the west coast of Florida and Central Florida sometimes. And it's easier to do now after the pandemic, because there's a lot still going on by Zoom. The big trials we're doing in person, but most of the court appearances are by Zoom, like the small, shorter ones. And also, a lot of people are still doing mediations. Like when we do mediation, people are doing it by Zoom, deposition, Zoom, just because it's convenient. And I think for mediation, especially, people can be, instead of coming to my office and, they have to sort of get dressed up and they have to be, and it's a little more, they can be comfortable and stay in their home. They can take a break, go walk their dog, and it's just a little more comfortable. And I feel like people are a little more at ease and relaxed when they can do that in that setting. And talking to the mediator or establishing trust and rapport across the screen. I know a lot of people were concerned about that. I haven't seen it affect our rate of being able to settle cases at mediation. So I think it's still pretty productive. But yeah, so it's easier to sort of make my way around the state if I needed to, because of that. So that's one thing that stuck. That was a good thing that resulted for my job anyway.
Well, if you're watching us on TV, you can see the phone number goes across the screen throughout the show. If you're listening on radio, Tina, give everybody your phone number.
Sure. The phone number is 561-544-6861. We have a website. It's lewertlaw.com, LEWERTLAW.com.
I got to tell you, we're in 10 cities now. We just opened up in Los Angeles. I've got about 80-something experts, and there's something I do not do very often, but I got to do it with Tina. If there is such thing as an endorsement, I totally endorse Attorney Tina Lewer. I really do. And I just don't do that because sometimes you can put your name on something and regret it later on. I never have to do that with you.
I won't do that.
And Tina will be back with us again next month. We'll delve more into divorce. I wanted people to kind of, this is we do this once a year, kind of get to know who Tina Lewert is. You're the best. I'm so glad we have you, and we will see you again next month.
Oh, thanks. See you again next month. Love you.
Thank
guys.
you, Tina. That was Tina Lewert. She is one of the finest family attorneys, not just in South Florida, but throughout Florida. And she also, her firm is our title sponsor, and we're so lucky to have her. Well, that's it for us today. We will have more Ask the Experts next week, next Thursday. We'll be talking about HOA and community association law. For those of you who live in gated communities, you have an association, you have board members. Next week, we will be talking about a lot of the new laws that are getting ready to happen here in Florida. Tell your friends about our show. Click like on YouTube, and we will be back again next week with more Ask the Experts. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.